Woodpeckers are a family of birds that even non-birders easily recognize. Their loud drumming, bold color patterns, and laughing cries set them apart. Woodpeckers possess a number of remarkable adaptations. The quills of their central tail feathers are extremely stiff, allowing the birds to brace their weight against tree trunks and branches. Their skulls, as one might guess, are reinforced against the stress they take impacting trees. Woodpeckers have extraordinarily long, barbed tongues, which coil up and over their skulls. These unusual organs function like spear guns, darting forward to impale grubs and other soft-bodied prey. The toes of woodpeckers are zygodactyl. In most species, 2 toes point forward and 2 point back. In all cases, the feet are powerful and strongly clawed, an important adaptation for relatively heavy tree-climbing birds. There are 3 main reasons that woodpeckers peck: to secure food, to make cavities for roosting and nesting, and to proclaim their territories. When a woodpecker is foraging for food, it will typically drive its bill into the bark or wood of a tree in single blows or in a short series. The aim here is to uncover insect larvae and other arthropods. Different species vary in the depth to which they forage. Some special instances of food-related pecking are the caching of acorns by acorn woodpeckers and the drilling of sap wells by sapsuckers. Acorn woodpeckers can turn trees and utility poles into honeycombs of stashed acorns, larders that will see them through leaner times in the winter. Sapsuckers drill rows of shallow holes into the trunks and branches of favored tree species, causing sap to flow, which in turn becomes a sweet, sticky trap for insects. The sapsuckers enjoy both sap and insects as they revisit their work. Woodpeckers also excavate large cavities in dead and dying trees for roosting and breeding. But by far the most often heard drumming and pecking by woodpeckers has to do with communication, not feeding. Each species has a distinctive rhythmic pattern that it hammers out, often choosing hollow spaces that act as amplification chambers, broadcasting territorial claims far and wide. If a woodpecker drums repeatedly on your house, it's likely using your dwelling as an amplifier, not as a grocery store. You can learn to recognize the territorial drummings of various woodpeckers the same way you can the songs of other birds. The hairy woodpecker has what might be called a standard or typical drum. The pileated's is much louder and slower. The syncopated beat of the yellow-bellied sapsucker is especially distinctive. While many of these structural and behavioral adaptations are common to all our woodpeckers, each species makes use of them in specific ways. The familiar downy woodpecker is very much a generalist, willing to forage at backyard feeding stations and even finding insects in corn stubble or weed stalks. At the other extreme of specialization is the red-cockaded woodpecker. Endemic to the southern U.S., the species is entirely dependent on mature pine forests old enough to have been infected with red heart disease, a fungus that softens the tree's heartwood. Though currently considered threatened, modern habitat management practices may allow us to preserve this distinctive bird. Sadly, conservation efforts came too late to save the mature river bottom forests of the South that once hosted the magnificent ivory-billed woodpecker, a spectacular icon of American wilderness. Though reports continue, the last universally accepted United States sightings of this bird occurred in the 1940s. The more flexible habitat requirements of the pileated woodpecker have allowed it to adapt and to increase its population in second growth and even suburban environments. The black-backed and American three-toed woodpeckers thrive on natural habitat alteration, clustering for a few years in burned, diseased, or otherwise distressed patches of boreal forest when prey abundance is especially high, then moving on. Flickers are famous for their habit of foraging on the ground, often feeding on ants. The uniquely colored Lewis's woodpecker does quite a bit of fly catching, darting out from snags or fence posts to snap up winged insects. Unlike the majority of woodpeckers, which fly in an undulating pattern, Lewis's has a more even, almost crow-like flight. Woodpeckers are a favorite family for many birders because, unlike sparrows, flycatchers, or shorebirds, they tend to be distinctive and straightforward to identify.